Hi everyone. Oh wait, minasan konnichiwa. That is the only Japanese I learned for this talk, so I hope you appreciated it. Thank you for attending my talk today. My name is Jemima, and I'm going to be talking to you about JavaScript. Specifically, how to use less JavaScript in your code. So let's get started. A little bit about myself, because I do so love to talk about myself. I am a front-end developer. I've been building websites since 2017. I'm also a Google developer expert in web technologies, a Microsoft MVP in web development, and a certified professional in accessibility core competencies. What that means basically is I like to talk, I like to go to tech conferences, and I like to share the good news about the web. So that's what all those things are. Let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the state of the web. So now, I don't know if anyone caught Sacha's talk earlier this morning on the state of the web. It was really good. If you didn't have a chance to see it, hopefully it was streamed. But basically, the point to take away from that talk is that the web is constantly changing and it's constantly evolving. New features are coming out every day. And because of these new features, it means that the same way we wrote code 10 or 20 years ago is not the way we need to be writing code now. So that is what this talk is going to be on. This talk is going to be showing you certain features that you may previously have written using JavaScript or a JavaScript library because you felt like that was the only way to build it. But now it's going to be like, you don't need JavaScript to do that at all because there's a HTML or CSS alternative. So let's kick it. This is the goal of what we want. We want to take the web back to a state where we're using CSS and HTML for display and we're using JavaScript for functionality. Because originally, that is what JavaScript was intended to do. It was built to be a helper to HTML and CSS. It was not built to take over the web. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to be looking at today is this, an accordion. Now, accordion is a simple web component that is constantly built everywhere. It's used to display certain content in a collapsed manner. So let's take a look at how we'll build this accordion using JavaScript. Pretend you can see that. All right, now this is our JavaScript accordion here. If I click this, the thing toggles, and that's all that. Now let's take a look at how we'll build this exact same accordion without using any JavaScript at all. Wow, this internet's slow. Yeah. I just realized why it was a bad idea to mirror my screen because I actually need to see what's going on there. So give me a sec while I figure out how to stop mirroring this. How's everybody doing? Are you all enjoying the conference so far? Are you having a good day? Yeah, we are. Great. Thanks. It's really good weather, which I'm very happy about. This is my first time in Japan, and I was like, I really hope it's good weather because it's November, so I didn't know what the weather will be like. Well, it's really good weather, so that's fun. Let me see. Stop extending. I'm scared to toggle this now because I'm like, what if I break it? All right, wait. Let's. Yay, we did it. Okay, cool. Now I can see what I'm showing you guys. Okay. So this is my CSS here, and this is my JavaScript. So tada, there's no JavaScript being used here, but the accordion still works. So let's take a look, let's break down what is actually going on here to make sure that this accordion is able to toggle content without relying on JavaScript. So we're gonna go back to our code here. This is what we're using in place of a JavaScript accordion. There's something called the details element. The details element is this HTML feature that allows us to create collapsible content on a page. And the details element is also widely available. The reason I point this out is because with a lot of new HTML and CSS features, sometimes it's like you hear about a cool feature and you're like, oh, I want to use this in my code. But they're like, it's not supported by all browsers. Details is not one of those elements because it is supported by all browsers. So let's go back to the code and take a look at how we're writing this JavaScript code. Now, if I was to build an accordion using JavaScript, this is like 13 lines here, which is not that much in the grand scheme of things, but also it's 13 lines of code we could not be writing. And I feel like we're all trying to write less code whenever we can. So let's take a look at details and how we're actually writing this code here. When you're building an accordion with details, it's literally just this. Let me zoom in for you. So the details element is literally an element called details, and you're passing a class of whatever you want, and then you have your summary element which serves as your header. And this is all we need to build a fully functional accordion without using any JavaScript at all. And so just to show that, I'm going to remove the styling that I have on my details here. And this is what a native details element looks like. So this is only HTML with no CSS at all, but you notice that it still works in the exact same way we intended it to, regardless of if the styling is there or not. But on the other hand, if we go to our JavaScript code, and let's say something in our code is causing this compiler to break, and we try to use this accordion, in case you can't hear, I'm clicking it really hard. You're not able to use this accordion anymore. So that is one of the negative sides of using JavaScript as opposed to native HTML and CSS elements. If anything in your build breaks, it means that this content, users can no longer access it. So it's basically inaccessible to anybody that's using this accordion. But on the other hand, if we have our HTML or CSS features, the content is always accessible regardless of what breaks in your build or what styling problems you have. Another great feature that Details has that I'll show real quick once I put this thing back is it has inbuilt browser functionality that makes it very easy to use. What am I doing here? Here. So let's go back to our JavaScript accordion now. So I have all my content here. Let's say I want to search something in the accordion. So I'm going to open my Control F and I'm going to write so hopefully you can see this search bar up here. So what you notice is that search bar says one of something, meaning that the search bar can tell you that there's something on that page that contains the text armadillo, but it doesn't know where that thing is located. If I click this, then you see, oh, it's here, but the search bar, it didn't open. But then if I go to the HTML version, and I write the same text, you notice that the accordion pops open by itself, and I didn't need to do anything for that. Let me do that again slowly. So I've opened my search bar, I start typing, the accordion pops open by itself, and the term I'm looking for is fully highlighted. So this is another one of the advantages of using a native feature like HTML over JavaScript, because the people that build the web, they have thought of all these features, all these reasons you could possibly want something, and they have included that in the feature that you're already looking for. So yeah, Details, it's great. Use it more. Another feature that Details has that is also really cool is something called exclusive details. How exclusive details works, you know how you have a regular accordion? Sometimes if one opens, you want to close the other one. Before you need JavaScript to do that, but now you can do that also using the details element. So let's take a look at how you do that. Like this. So Details has an attribute called name. Once a name is passed into a details accordion, it groups it with another accordion. And once it's grouped, it means that anytime that accordion is opened, the other one will be closed. So that's another cool feature that Details offers. Just to point out, if I wanted to write a toggleable accordion using JavaScript, this is how many lines of code I'll use, right? This is a disgusting amount of code to be writing, and I hate it. And you guys shouldn't do that. So if you want to have excluding accordions, make sure you use the name features. Yeah. Name is also baseline available, but this is also a more recent development. So this was from 2024, which was last year, which is great because now it means you can be using this across all your browsers if you want to. So the name feature is something that is just for the details to group them. But yeah, it's pretty cool and you should try it out. And then we have modals. Modals are another feature that people tend to rely on JavaScript a lot for because it's one of the easiest ways of toggling content. If I want content to appear on the screen quickly, I'm likely to use a modal. But what if I told you that you could build a modal without using any JavaScript at all? And how we do that is by using something called the popover element. So I'm going to show you how popover works. Popover is also baseline available, which is a great feature. And it's baseline available as of 2025. So that's this year, which is fairly recent. But it's something that's really cool to know. So definitely look out for popover whenever you need to build a modal. So let's take a look at how our popover works. Here, once I click it, the modal pops up. So I click open modal and the modal appears. You'll notice that I'm not using any JavaScript here at all, but the modal is still working. The reason for that is because of this element called popover. So when you're building a popover, there are three things you need to look out for. The first is the popover attributes. That's this feature here. Hold on. This feature here is what says, okay, I want this div to appear as a modal. That's popover attribute. The second is the popover target. Now, popover target is what you use to make the button a button that controls the popover. So here, my popover attribute, it has an ID of my modal, and the popover target is set to my modal. So what that means is every time I click this open modal button, the popover my modal is what appears. And then we also have popover target action. So here I have a popover target action of show, and when I click that, the popover appears. And here for this close button, I have a popover target action of hide. And when I click that, the popover closes. So these are the three main attributes that popover uses to recreate modal features. So let's see. Yeah. Another really cool thing about popover that I will show is when you're building a JavaScript modal, because of things like accessibility is making sure that people that use keyboards or mouses or anything can use the features you're building in the same way that people that use the regular laptops can. So if I'm using a screen reader, for example, can I access all the same content in the same way a user not using a screen reader can? So that's what we want to think of when we're building something. If I'm building a modal, I have to think about things like, does this modal gain focus automatically when it appears on the page? If a user clicks outside the modal, is the modal going to close? If a user is navigating within the modal, is focus trapped within that modal, or can the user, can the modal be visible and the user is still navigating outside? When you're building a custom JavaScript modal, these are a lot of things you need to keep into mind. It's the same thing when you're downloading a library or just using any external component for a modal. But because you're using popover, a lot of those things are naturally included for you by default. So for example, I'm using the keyboard here. You notice that when I click my modal open, the next thing that the modal focuses on is, the next thing that the focus goes on is into the modal itself. So here, I've clicked my modal, I press tab again, and I'm back in the modal. So let's see if something else was on the page, for example. Like so. All right. It is really hard to type and code at the same time.
Oh.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wait, do you want to use pin mic?
Yes, please. I didn't know there was a pin mic available. Let us pin that on. Okay. Pardon while I do my sound check. Alright. How is that? Is it, do I press it on?
Maybe. Okay.
Alright, mic check.
Yeah.
Ohio? Great. Hi. Okay. This is much better. I really don't like holding it. I need my hands. Oh, move around.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, so I'm going to just set up, let's say, href, and then put that in there, and then -5. Yeah, okay. All right, none of this is relevant. Just give me a sec. No. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's just a very long way of adding links to the page. It had nothing to do with the demo. But anyway, the point I'm trying to show you, so here, let's say I have my modal here, right? And I'm tabbing through this page. So normally, if you're tabbing through a page, it goes in sequential order. So I clicked open modal, the next thing that it goes to is link 1, link 2, link 3. On a regular page, on an accessible page, if I have opened a modal, I do not want the user to have to tab through everything else on the page before they get to the modal. So that is one of the things that popover does great by default. If I open this modal, you notice that the focus immediately goes into the modal and the user doesn't have to tab through anything else that's visible on the page just to get into the modal. So that's one of the great features of popover, the inbuilt accessibility features that make it so much easier for, let's say, people with disabilities to use the features that you're building. So popover, it's great. And that thing with popover is that it's not just limited to modals. Popover works for anything that is going to appear on a screen in a toggleable manner. For example, I can have a popover dropdown. I click a button, the dropdown appears. I click outside the dropdown, it closes automatically. Once again, no JavaScript being used. How am I doing that? Just by using the popover element. I'm not sure why button 2 is there, but I'm sure I had a reason for it. Another thing, cool feature that works well with popover, this is not a HTML feature, this is a CSS feature. It is the has pseudo selector. Has is a feature that lets you style an element based on a certain property. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So let's say I click here. One thing you notice now is that once this popover has opened, the menu button is highlighted and the thing has changed. So just show what I'm talking about. You notice that here previously, the menu didn't change even after it was opened. But in this new example, the menu is highlighted and the button has turned upside down. Once again, I'm not using any JavaScript to do this. I am doing this just by using the has pseudo selector. So what I'm saying to my code here is, if this body is the containing property, has a drop-down ID with the attribute popover open, then style the menu button this way. Has one of those really cool features that kind of revolutionizes how we write CSS code, because previously, if I wanted to style an active element or something that had been clicked, I would have to do, add a class name using JavaScript to this thing. So I'd have to be like, button.onClick, then add class name here. And if the button is clicked again and class name is present, then remove the class name. What has is saying is you do not have to use JavaScript to detect an element state anymore, because you can just detect it in native CSS. So that is one of the really cool features that's coming to CSS newly. It is the has pseudo selector. So here we can see the same code just outlined with what it's doing. Has is something that is also baseline available. So if you want to be using has in your code, and has is not just for like styling things, it's also great for styling parent elements as well. So if I wanted to say, I have multiple examples, I'll just show you one real quick. So as I have a lot of code pens, it is this one. I think this is one of the really cool ones that I quite like with has. Here. So it is a completely CSS only theme switcher. So this is, without any JavaScript, I'm switching my theme from dark to light, and how I'm doing that is by using only the has selector. So what I'm saying here is, if the body has a checkbox that is checked, apply dark styling. If not, apply the default styling. So that's just one of the many examples of how has can be used. Anytime you think, I want to check if something exists in the CSS property, instead of defaulting to JavaScript, try has. It's great. Okay. This is for Tailwind, for people who write Tailwind, because it's also supported in Tailwind. I always have to include Tailwind because I write Tailwind a lot at work, and this is one of the annoying things that I have about Tailwind. There'll be a cool property, but it's not supported in Tailwind, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I was very happy that has is supported in Tailwind. So if you use Tailwind, there you go, great stuff. All right, CSS themes, which I already showed you that one. And then we have a popover sidebar. So as opposed to, instead of just modals and drop downs, you can also use popovers to create sidebars that appear. Yeah, cool, eh? So go in there. So this is a sidebar that you can use with only the popover element. It operates in the same way as a modal. You click open sidebar, the sidebar opens. You click close, closes itself. Did I have any cool thing to show you here? No, I think that was it. But still, popover, sidebar, fun stuff. Starting style, this is another fun one. So now, anyone that's been writing CSS for a while, you know that it's very hard to animate from display none to display auto. If I'm saying, I want this thing to slide out and it was in display none before, it's just not going to be smooth. So let me show you how we make things smooth now with starting style. What I have here is an element that was previously hidden here. My element was previously hidden, so when the popover is invisible, it has a display none property. I can show you that real quick if we go to the dev tools. Here. So for every popover that's not active, it's set to display none. And then when I click open sidebar, normally what would happen is, because it's going from display none to a display block or something, it would not be a smooth transition. So just to clear that, let me remove the sidebar. So like this, normally this is how any transition that didn't have starting style would work. When we're going from display none to a display fixed property, it's not smooth. But now, because of starting style is something that allows us specify that I want my elements to start from this style regardless of what display property it has. So you notice that it moves a lot smoother now, even though it's still going from display none to display block. This is because starting style is used to specify to a browser that ignore whether it's a display none or opacity 0 or visibility hidden. The important thing is that it should start from, in this case, it should start from transform here and it should flow to transform here. So starting style is another really cool CSS property, and it is also baseline available. So this is also something that you can be using in production code right now because it's fully available everywhere. So that's starting style. Allow discrete. Allow discrete is, I have 8 minutes left. Google allow discrete. It's also really cool. You can take a picture and check it out. Transition behavior. So yeah, transition behavior is the similar thing to starting style, where I'm saying if you're going from display none to display block, I want you to allow this discrete transition. So if it's basically a property that says allow this thing move from display none to display block. More tailwind stuff. Oh, popover tooltip. I really wanted to touch on this one. Popovers can also be used to build fully functional tooltips. So a tooltip is just something that I click on an element and I'm like, yeah, this thing should apply. That's how a tooltip works. Now, one thing that popover can't do, and one thing you noticed here is that even though I'm hovering on this tooltip, it doesn't appear, and that's not how tooltips normally work. I do want my tooltip to appear on hover, but because right now popover is only set to appear on click, this is a tooltip that only works on click. So if I wanted this to appear on hover, I would need JavaScript for this to work. So once I've added my JavaScript, then it appears on hover. So this is it appearing without me having to click on it. But there is a new CSS feature that allows us have that hover effect without using any JavaScript at all. And that brings us to the next batch of this talk, which is called experimental features. So now all the features I've been showing you so far, details, popover, starting style, those are all fully supported and those can be used in production. But this is a new batch of features that are coming to the web, not fully available, but they allow you to do super cool things. So the first one I want to show is anchor positioning. Anchor positioning is what lets us, how do I put this? It's what lets us specify where we want to place an element. So let's say I have my tooltip here. This is my tooltip. One thing that fixed styling has, and this is just a general tooltip error, it's a general error. If I have any content here, because you notice that my tooltip, my popover element, it's fixed to, here I've given it like a bottom margin of 60px. So if I give it like 20px, give it a sec, here, then it moves down. So this is like a fixed styling, right? But then an issue that can happen with this is if any more text appears on the page, so for example, let's say text appears that causes this button to be pushed down, then you notice that my tooltip styling is broken because it was a fixed style. Anchor positioning allows us to prevent this from happening. And how it does that is by, I'm going to show you. Here, so what anchor positioning does, it says center this content to this parent element. So now with this, no matter how much I move things around the page, even if I add like, I don't know what that is supposed to be. Give it a sec, here. This tooltip will always be placed where I put the anchor positioning. So that's how anchor positioning works. It's saying anchor this thing to this part of the element. And that really cool feature that anchor positioning has is you can change it however you want. So I can say put it on top, or I can say it should be on the right of the element. I can say it should be below the element, or it should be on the left of it. Anchor positioning will also do that. And that really cool thing that anchor positioning does is something called try fallback. So you notice when I click this drop down, it appears on the left side. And when I click this drop down here, it appears on the right side. So drop downs by default appear on the right, but if there's no space, then they appear on the left. This is another feature that is coming to anchor positioning right now. Let me get rid of this real quick. Oh, I really didn't realize how fast 30 minutes flies until you're up on the stage and you're like, I swear I had more time than that. Okay, so it's something called try fallback. So what you'll notice here is if I have my anchor here and I try to reduce the page, the tooltip, even though it reduces itself in size, it's still squished into the corner, right? So I can have something called try fallback, which basically says, if there is no space for the tooltip where it is, put it somewhere else. So what try fallback does is that it lets you recreate that drop-down styling where if there's no space on one side, move it to the other side. So try fallback is a really cool feature that anchor positioning has. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it works. So try fallbacks, and that really cool one. Another feature is, so this is a really good tool for understanding how anchor positioning works. It's anchor-tool.com, so it just shows you all different properties that anchor positioning can use. Popover hints. Popover hints is another really good one that I want to cover real quick. So one thing you know when I said like with popovers, you can have a popover as a menu. One thing that can cause a breaking feature with this is if I have something else on the page that's also a popover. So if, for example, I have a menu item and then I have a tooltip somewhere, anytime this tooltip is clicked, it causes the menu to close because that's how popovers work. It's like, oh, you've clicked outside, I'm going to close it. We can avoid that by, all right, I have to put my hover feature back. So yeah, now I've put my tooltip as a hover. So now even though I'm not clicking on the popover, it's closing it. A way we can avoid that is by, instead of saying popover, where is it? Here, I'm going to change this attribute to have popover hints. So what I'm doing is I'm saying this tooltip content is no longer an actual popover, it's a hint popover. I notice that now I'm still able to open that tooltip without it closing the main popover on the page. So hints is another really good feature that's coming to popover. Like I said, none of these are fully supported yet, they're all experimental, so that's it. And then this is the third one I wanted to show you. It's called interest invoker. Now this is so experimental, it doesn't even, I couldn't even make a demo for it, it doesn't exist. You have to like request permission from Google to actually use it. But somebody else requested permission, so we can just see their demo real quick. So you notice here, this is the button that says hover for popover. And when I hover on it, then the popover appears on the page. So this is the new interest invoker feature, and that is how it works. So it allows you basically like the way you would use JavaScript to do on focus, that's what interest invoker is. So it's really cool. I'm gonna skip this one. Oh, I really wanted to show this one. You know what? No, I'm gonna show it. Scroll animation. This was the one I was most excited about because scroll animation and JavaScript have been the bane of my existence. This is full animations without using any JavaScript at all. So here, you notice that this fades in, this slides in from the right. So this is basically a scroll triggered animation without using any JavaScript at all. And how this is done is by, look how much code you would need to write if you were doing scroll animation in JavaScript. I hate scroll animations in JavaScript. This is the code that we write using only CSS. It's literally 2 lines of code. It is view timeline name and is animation timeline. View timeline is a new CSS property that allows you to tie animations to either the scroll or the view. And this, once again, it is not a baseline feature, it's not working everywhere. But if you want to check out more about how scroll-driven animations work, I'll definitely recommend checking out this tool here that kind of breaks down everything in a nice to understand manner. And finally, more cool features. 1 minute left, guys, we can do this. I am not going to break down all of these ones. These are just some more cool features that come in CSS, but I'll definitely recommend checking them out. I will be sharing the slides. The one I did want to break down is CSS if, and that's just because I think there was a really cool thread on Stack Overflow where basically 15 years ago somebody asked, can you use if conditions in CSS? And then yesterday, somebody was like, yes, you can. And that is kind of the entire basis of this talk. It's showing that just because something wasn't possible in the past doesn't mean it will never be possible. So yes, 15 years ago, we couldn't use if in CSS, but in 10 months, maybe if will be fully supported and we'll be able to use it. So thank you so much for attending my talk. I hope you learned at least one useful thing. And if I saved you from writing one more line of JavaScript, then my work here is done. All right, thanks everybody.